What's up guys, I'm Sloth here, back for some Magic the Gathering content. Today, we are talking March of the Machine spoilers. They have released so many freaking cards. So much that I'm getting a small anxiety attack because it's just too many. So I'm just going to talk about the cards that I think are powerful. First of all, let's talk about Mommy herself, ELESH NORN. So ELESH NORN is 2 of any color and 2 white for a 3/5 legendary creature Phyrexian Praetor with Vigilance. And whenever a source an opponent control deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. And then also, you can pay 2 of any color and 1 white, sacrifice 3 other creatures, exile ELESH NORN, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner control. Activate only as a sorcerer. Its Saga side has Chapter 1, incubate 2 5 times, then transform all incubator tokens you control. 2. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and double strike until end of turn. 3. Destroy all other permanents except for artifact, lands, and Phyrexian. Exile the Argent Etching, then return it to the battlefield, front face up. So first of all, the stats are pretty good. 4 mana 3/5 Vigilance is decent at best, and her high toughness means that if it's a burn deck or something, they'll have to burn it a couple times, so her second ability will trigger a lot. Now I think her second ability is best as a top end to an aggro deck. Let's say you have a bunch of creatures and they have a bunch of blockers. You play ELESH NORN, you attack with all. Hopefully all their mana is tapped, and they will be forced to block, and if they block, they will lose 2 life, so that could really win games. Or they would want to cast something, but they couldn't because they have to save their mana to not take damage from ELESH NORN. In other strategies, it's not as good. Let's say you're a mid-range or control deck. In those matchups, your opponent will get a lot of mana, so they can use their excess mana to pay the 1. And if you're not an aggressive deck, them losing 2 life isn't that important. In aggro versus aggro, this ability could be pretty strong too, because it will stop your opponents from attacking you. If they don't have a lot of life and a lot of mana, they can't deal that much damage to you before dying themselves. The problem is that if they one-shot you with everything, you won't get the triggers because those will trigger after damage, so you'll still die. Now her flip ability isn't that hard to get in an aggressive deck, because the aggressive decks, especially white aggressive decks, tend to have a lot of creatures, and sacrificing 3 creatures isn't so much of a big deal because you will get so much power from her flip side. So how I see it is you go to combat, you attack with all. They don't want to block your creatures because they don't want to lose the 2 life. So a lot of your creatures survive. So then after combat's done, you activate her ability and get an insane amount of value. So her first chapter makes 5 creatures, which is definitely more than 3 that you sacrificed. Also gives synergies if you already have other incubated tokens, which you might because this is a go wide board and tokens go wide. Now the second chapter really synergizes with the go wide strategy because +1/+1 double strike all your creatures, pretty insane. Let's say you only have the 5 incubates. You're hitting for 15 damage, which is crazy, and you'll probably have more creatures at this point, so you can hit for even more. It is one of those feel bad abilities though sometimes. If your board is wiped, it doesn't do anything, and there's kind of a negative synergy with the ELESH NORN because ELESH NORN, the 3/5, she won't be a creature while this happens. So when you flip her, you lose a 3/5, and in this case a 4/6 double strike, but it can still easily win games. Now the last chapter I'm not 100% sure about because this might wipe your board. It completely depends how strong and how many Phyrexians you can run in your deck, but if you can get to that point where you're running almost all Phyrexians, this could be a one-sided board wipe, which could be pretty crazy. But also depending on how many Phyrexians there are, it might also just not destroy any of your opponent's stuff. And it synergizes chapter 1 because those will be Phyrexians, so they won't get killed by this. Also, the ability to destroy all enchantment and planeswalkers can be very strong. Let's look at Mono White, which is a pretty good deck in this standard. It takes out ossification, so you get your creatures back. And it's also fun use ossifications because the creature exiled won't be killed from the board wipe, so it could come back and give you some advantage. It kills Wandering Emperor, it kills Wedding Announcement, it kills Restoration of Iganjo, it kills the Eternal Rondor, it kills Elspeth, it kills Sarah Paragon. Like, it is devastating against this deck. It's also absolutely devastating against the Selesnya Enchantment deck because every single thing they run gets hit by this. It takes out Skrulv's hive, which is good and bad, because I'm assuming in the deck that runs ELESH NORN, you really want Skrulv's hive to make Phyrexians and creatures you can sack, but it would also take your opponent's one out, so that's pretty good. Destroys Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which sees an insane amount of play, so that's also really good. And then once you flip back into ELESH NORN, her first chapter made 5 creatures. So if they survived, you can flip her again and start the whole cycle all over again. So I think ELESH NORN would be spectacular in an aggressive, slightly mid-range aggro deck that wants a top end to just go way over the top and drown your opponents in value. So yes, I think this card is awesome, and I'm very excited to see play because these Praetors that flip into sagas are so cool. So yeah, that was pretty much all I had to say about ELESH NORN. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and yeah, see ya.